Hello YouTube, this is Nicole. I'm coming at you live today from my new office, and today we're going to talk about mental health. So the topic of conversation for today, we're going to expand on our last YouTube video that was on gaslighting to include crazy making behaviors, okay? This is very important for people that are in abusive relationships to acknowledge that it's happening instead of continuing to live in denial, and to learn what exactly is happening to you so that you can learn what to do next. Because if you don't get some help and if you don't escape the situation, you might end up in a situation like I found myself in the month and year of September 2020. So it's very important for your overall mental and overall emotional health and well-being that when you're in a situation that seems confusing, you're starting to question your sanity, you're starting to question your reality, you're starting to question your own thoughts. You're starting to question your own memories. You're starting to question if you're okay. And at the same time, you're starting to question the intentions of the person that is doing this to you. It's very important that you see the behavior for exactly what it is. Because the longer that you stay trapped and caught in this cycle, the harder it is going to be to recover, the longer your recovery is going to be, and the more pieces of your life that are going to fall apart, including jobs, family, friend relationships. Especially, I think the most important thing here is your mind. So mental health is very, very, very important. Emotional well-being is very, very important. And if you stay caught up in a cycle that is intended to destroy your mind, that's exactly what's going to happen. So first of all, we've talked about gaslighting on my YouTube channel before, and most people in the world know what gaslighting is to some degree. A lot of people haven't been trapped in that cycle, so they don't know exactly how that feels and how it can mess with your mind. And how it can make you feel like you're insane. But in severe cases of gaslighting, we're shifting now to looking at crazy making behaviors. So it's not just the occasional on the part of the abuser. It's no longer just the occasional, I want to get out of something, so that I don't have to accept responsibility and be held accountable for it. Now we're talking about something that's done maliciously and insidiously to someone to destroy their psychological well-being. So what is crazy making behavior? We're going to look at an article written by Andrea Matthews. She's in the field of psychology. This is from Psychology Today. She says one of the most insidious and damaging of the behaviors of the emotional abuser is the crazy making behavior. Not only does the emotional abuser often accuse his victim of literally being crazy or gaslight to try to trick the abused into thinking she must be crazy, but he actually uses what we call crazy making behaviors, which have the same effect. What is a crazy making behavior? It is behavior that is made to sound very logical and practical, but which actually makes no sense and or serves to give options that only punish the abused. The double bind is one of the primary crazy making behaviors. And you guys, this is very scary because the abuser, while they're doing this to you, can see that they're disrupting your sanity. So it seems pretty logical to say that it's an intentional action. So this double bind was once considered among many mental health professionals to be the cause of schizophrenia. And anybody who anybody who talked to me or was in my presence about 1 year and 3 months ago could look at the way that any of the texts that I sent out, any of the correspondence that I sent out begging people, please help me, I don't know what's going on, somebody needs to get him away from me, could somebody please help me? It does look like schizophrenic behavior. I can't argue that point, nor would I try, because we're trying to talk about what's right for your mental health. And when you're going through this, to deny that your mind is not a complete mess would be an absolute lie. So when I was reaching out for help to people saying, I'm not okay, he says this, but he does this, he's telling me this, he's trapping me in rooms, he says he cares about me and he loves me, but then he does these things intentionally to drive me insane. What's going on? Can someone please come get him? I'm okay when I'm talking to my friends. The only person that I'm not okay around is him. I was just begging my husband's family, someone please come help me, someone come please save me, someone please come take him. I was begging everybody that he knew, because I'm in California and I moved here to be with him. So my family's back on the East Coast. I didn't have anybody that I could call to come over and be like, will someone be present? I remember I asked his dad to come over, I asked his mom to come over, I asked his brother to fly in from Louisiana. I asked his brother if I could fly him out to Louisiana. I asked his godbrother, I asked his godsister. I reached out to 3 or 4 of his best friends, and I was like, help. This doesn't make sense. I don't know what's going on. I don't know why he's acting this way. I don't know why he's doing this to me. And then back then, I was still under the impression that he loved me, because that's what he said. So I was like, I know he loves me. Maybe he doesn't know what he's doing to me. I don't know what's wrong with him. I don't know why he's doing this to me, but maybe someone can tell him to stop. If there's someone else in our presence, or if there's someone on the phone, he won't do it. But when we're alone, that's when he does it to me. So I just wanted what I wanted. And why I reached out to everybody was, I was like, all I knew is, if there's somebody else here, he won't do it to me. Like, if there's somebody else here that sees that he says something and sees that he does something, then for some reason, this is how much your mental health is destroyed by this. I thought he loved me, but the reality of the situation was, I already knew that if someone else was sitting with us, he wouldn't do the things and say the things that he would do that would disrupt my sanity. So all I knew to say to people was, someone please come here. Because, it's such a crazy situation. Like this article says, mental health professionals, used to be under the impression that this was this double bind, this doing this but saying this, and like saying you love somebody but doing those things that person's saying, stop, you're hurting me, stop, that's destroying my mind, I don't like it when you do that to me, that's scary, this harms me, stop. And then they're like, stop what? And you're like, stop this specific behavior that I'm asking you to stop. All I knew is that when we're alone together, that's the only time that it would happen. But if somebody else is there, it doesn't happen. So when your mind's already so twisted and you're caught in this scenario and there's no perceived level of escape because they're threatening you, all you know to do is to start calling and texting people saying, help me, please help, someone help. I don't know what to do. Because, you know, when there's no broken bones, right? When someone hasn't crushed your skull in, when someone hasn't left handprints on your arm, when someone hasn't had their hands around your neck, when someone hasn't brutally raped you, when someone, you know, when there's not broken windows and the bills are paid and everything like that, when everything that is happening is unseen, it's extremely hard to understand why someone is picking up the phone in a panic for months and months, texting in a panic, help, he's brainwashing me, he's destroying my mind, I'm so confused. You know, that's when you start really giving them what they're trying to do. When you are at the point where you're completely confused, when you are at the point where the gaslighting and the crazy making has worked so well that you're questioning your own sanity, that's when, if you're reaching out for help, then it's too late. Because everyone thinks that you're the problem then. You know, you already know all I need to do to get well is to not have physical contact with this person at all. You already know that because everybody else that you have contact with isn't doing that to you. So you already know why you're feeling like you're insane. But to express this to other people, everybody just wants to throw you in a psychiatric care facility. But that's not going to solve the problem, because once you're returned back to that environment, it's just going to continue. And then, you know, what happens again? Send her back to the psychiatric care facility. Okay, then, you know, she's around people that don't F with her head, you know, for 3 days. Okay, everything starts getting normal again. Throw her back into the abuse. It's not going to work. No amount of psychiatric care can fix someone's mind for 3 or 4 or 14 days. It can get you stabilized again. But then once you're returned back into that environment, it's just a matter of a day or 2 or even an hour, because like you're still so sensitive to the power of persuasion. You're still so sensitive to the lies and manipulation that it's not going to do any good. You have to get away from the abuser. So yeah, you feel like maybe I'm schizophrenic. Maybe I have borderline personality disorder. You know, maybe I'm bipolar. Maybe you know, so that's all these symptoms of, you know, this extreme triggeredness that you get where you're jumpy. I remember one time he came in from the back door and I jumped and he started laughing at me and he was like, I've never laid a hand on you. And he was like, why? He thought it was funny. He was like, why did you jump? I didn't know why I jumped. I didn't know. I was talking to my friend Denise about 6 months ago about this. You know, she's just been really good to me. She's here in California. She was my dental assistant at one of my last jobs. And I was asking her, like, what are the differences that you see in me now to when, you know, I was coming to work 2 and 3 years ago? And she was like, Nicole, after you had your baby and you returned to work, she was like, you scared easy, you spooked easy. And I was like, what do you mean? And this is before I had realized that this was something that was going on. And she was like, you were jumpy all the time. I would come out from the corner to tell you something. You'd have your hands in a patient's mouth and you would jump. And it's the same thing as, like, you know, a knock on the door, or, you know, your phone starts ringing and you're like, who is it? You know, your mind is just not in a good place when when someone is lying and manipulating you to the point where you're starting to question your own sanity. So yes, this double bind was thought to be the cause of schizophrenia. It puts the abused into such a position that she is damned if she does and damned if she doesn't. Imagine driving down a highway that posts a sign saying, "Do not read this sign under penalty of law." We are, as good drivers, obligated by law to read all signs. But here's a sign that we're supposed to read that tells us that if we read it, we might suffer the penalty of the law. We are going to read it, but then we have to look over our shoulders for the enforcement of the penalty of the law. If we don't read it, we are breaking the law. If we do read it, we are breaking the law. We are damned if we do and damned if we don't. And that's the double bind. So that's very much that crazy making behavior. So here's one that I thought about this morning that I hadn't thought about in probably, I don't know, like a year. And when this happened, this was probably, it was at the end of my relationship. It's probably about 2 or 3 months before I left him. And I couldn't make sense of it because, like this article says, if you post a sign on the road that you're required to read as a driver, but it says under penalty of law, do not read the sign, you're gonna read it because you're supposed to read it. But then you're gonna be looking over your shoulder because you're like, oh my God, I'm gonna get in trouble for reading it. That's very much how emotional and psychological abuse works. Here's one thing that still does not make sense to me, did not make sense to me when it happened, and won't ever make sense to me. Now, my husband and I are supposed to be going to therapy because I asked the judge last year to order court-ordered family therapy, not to get back together, but I wanted to understand what the AG double hockey sticks happened, like what's going on. Why do I still want to understand it so much? Listen, I'm never going to understand it. I've already, what are they called? Tossed that to the wind. Like, I already know that the answer to what this stuff is, like what he was doing to me and why he was doing it is so elusive because, I've asked him 1,005 times. I already know that my answers are so elusive that I'll never get them. And the reason why they're so elusive is because the truth is not something that he would ever be willing to tell me. This story that I'm about to tell you right now, that I had to call his dad and ask because I needed to save my sanity, it will never make sense to me. And it's just one of those days, one of those, it's just one thing that happened that, there's no logic in it. There's no logic. It's like posting a sign that you're not supposed to read, but you're legally required to read it. But then when you read it, you could be punished. This will never make sense to me. But why is it important for me to get my ex to therapy to talk about these things? I fear for my daughter. I do. I don't, now that I know what he did to me and pretty much why, because my answers are coming from my team of therapists, and the research that I'm doing, because I'm going back to school for neuropsychology specifically, because that's how fascinating and how confusing all of this is. You want to know why, and you also want to know how to stop it. Especially when you share kids with somebody that has no remorse about disrupting your sanity, and then leaving a child in an environment with a human being that you're intentionally trying to destroy their sanity. you come to the realization that not only does your safety and well-being not matter, but they're willing to sacrifice their own child's safety and well-being to destroy your mind. So what happens when you're at the point where it's dangerous for the child to be around you? That's not a safe environment. And I was trying to tell him this, but like, it just didn't matter. You know, none of it mattered. So I got a little sidetracked right now, but let's get back on topic. This is just one example of crazy making behavior that never made sense to me. It's never going to make sense to me. The only peace that I have been able to find from it is being able to accept that it is what it is. This is just like one thing that would happen like on a daily, it's always something different. It's always a different brand new scenario, but with a different thing. So like anything that you do in life, like for instance, this story is about an ant infestation, okay? These people will take any opportunity that they see to use to disrupt your sanity. So never have I ever in my life had such a difficulty just moving through life, retaining my sanity. But here a few months before I left him, here's one of the things that shocked me, and I didn't know what to do with it. And it makes you angry and it makes you confused. So it was summertime 2020, okay? I got laid off in spring 2020, March. Like March 15th because of COVID. So it's summertime, I'm in California. This house and the yard, we've always had ants. And I always buy those, I used to have them in here. I always buy those jugs right across the street at the hardware store, like the ant spray. And I was at home watching the baby while my ex was at work. And I texted him and I said, the ants are getting really, really, really bad inside. Can you please stop by the hardware store on your way home and buy a lot of ant killer? I was just like, buy it all. Because it was bad. They were all in the kitchen. Back then the house was a mess. I'm not gonna go into why, but the house was always a mess when he lived here. Nothing was like organized and like clean and whatever. It was just always like a effing fiasco. So there were things like all over the kitchen table. And when you pile like mail, there's a basket of laundry, here's my purse, here's like random things. Like there's a lot of spaces for ants to hide in. So I had some kind of food or something in my purse that I had left in there. And so the ants had moved from the kitchen, they were still on the kitchen countertops, going down the walls, crawling on the floor. Now I had ants all in my purse. And I had ants all in my purse. They were all over the kitchen table, and they were going through, they were all over all the mail. They were just everywhere. They were crawling across the floor from the kitchen to the dining area into the living room. And I was like, buy all of the ant killer, by traps, by everything. So he did, and he came home. And let's see, our baby was going to sleep probably around 7 or something like that. And he went to bed early-ish, I don't know. So I stayed up because he always, during the pandemic, he was working really early. So instead of getting up at 4 a.m. or something like that, he was getting up at 3 a.m. And I'm a night owl anyway, so I stayed up pretty late. And after he went to bed and after the baby went to bed, I dove in deeper to cleaning the ant infestation. So I took everything off the kitchen table. I had to take my purse outside, whatever. So we have a baby, and back then we had 3 dogs. And ant killer is dangerous for children, or at least I was assuming that it was. And we're talking about a baby that's crawling on the floor, so that kind of it's hard to control ants, And we're talking about a kitchen table where we're putting food and stuff. So I didn't know exactly how to take care of this without getting dangerous with the ant killer, because I have a crawling baby, but the ants are all over the floor, right? And I have a crawling baby. I don't want to do something to where she puts her hands in it and then rubs it in her eyes, or if the dog, like our dogs used to lick everything. Like, it didn't matter if it was ant killer. Like, if it was, you know, they would eat diapers. So, like, I don't want to, when you spray ant killer, like, it has a smell and whatever, the dogs are going to go right to it, and especially the dumb one, Gunner, that I used to have. He would lick everything. He would eat drywall, too. So, I didn't want to, like, kill my kid or animals. So, I just spent an obnoxiously a large amount of time carefully doing this. So first, I took the ant killer and I sprayed this. The whole story doesn't really matter, but I'll just give it briefly. I sprayed down all the ants and I took everything off the table, threw it outside, and then I took ant killer and I sprayed it on a paper towel, and I was like, first, I'm going to like put it all over the table, right? And I wiped down all the legs or whatever, I sprayed, whatever, I waited. And then was like, okay, this is dangerous, but I had to take care of the ants because it's just at this point out of hand, but I don't want to kill anybody and I don't want anybody to get sick. So then I take Clorox wipes and I start wiping down everything with Clorox wipes. And then I take a mop and I start mopping the floor. Like, I put the ant killer in places where I don't feel like the baby is going to come in contact with, so hopefully, and I sprayed the outside of the windows and the cracks and whatever. I'm like, maybe if I seal everything, try to keep him out. But what I did the best that I could. Okay, I did the best that I could. And then I went through with Pledge, and our table's wooden, so I went through with Pledge, and I'm like, I've got to Clorox it, I've got to Pledge it, you know, I've got to, the baby, when she goes to stand up, she grabs the legs of the kitchen table. So I'm doing this with so much, and you know, thought and consideration. I'm a really precise person, and I don't like to do things haphazardly. Like, I tried to do it to perfection, okay? I fell asleep on the couch. And before I fell asleep on the couch, I was like monitoring the situation. The ants were still coming. Not very many, but like there was still like an ant that would get, I didn't even know where they were coming from. One would get on the table, okay, and then I would see one on the table leg, and I'm like, oh, like, nobody wants to dine with ants. So my husband at the time, he came downstairs for work at like 3 o'clock in the morning. I was on the couch because I fell asleep on the couch, and I got up to be with him because he was coming downstairs or whatever, and he grabs his boots and grabs his hat for work, and he pulls out a chair and he sits down to go put his boots on, and he goes and he lays his hat on the table. And I said, hey babe, don't lay your hat on the table. And he looks up and he asks me, why? And I said, because there's still ants. And then he looked at me and he was like, why are there still ants? And I explained to him, and he's like, I went and bought you everything that you needed to clean all the ants out, and you said you were going to do it. And I said, I did do it. And he said, then why are there still ants? And I said, because, and I explained everything that I just explained to you. I can't douse the table in this, you know, poison, because we have a baby, we have the dogs, you know, here's what I did. So that long process that I just told you about, I explained it all to him. And I'm like, pick up your hat though. You know, and he wants to eat a bowl of cereal too. And he was like, I can't even sit at the table to, like, why did I even buy that stuff? And I was explaining to him, it's not really my fault. Like, I did the best that I could. And he was like, Nicole, that doesn't even make sense. And I'm like, what does not make sense to you? And he was like, how? There's still ants on the table. And I was like, I don't exactly know. Like, I mean, I sprayed whatever, and then I explained it to him again. And he was like, that's not possible. And I was like, how is that not possible? You know, I'm sitting there thinking, what else do I say? Like, what do I say right now? And I said, it is possible because it's happening. And he was like, well, then you must have not actually sprayed. And I was like, but I did. And he was like, well, then you didn't do a really good job. And I was like, no, I did do a good job, but listen, I had to go back and I had to take the Clorox wipe. Okay. So then he said, if you actually sprayed, there is no possible way that those ants would be crawling on the table right now because they'd be dead. And so at that point, do you guys see what I'm saying? I explained to him 3 or 4 times what I did. I asked him to ask the ants how it's physically possible for them to be on the table. He was telling me that I was lying. I had just spent 2 hours that night, late in the night, doing everything that I could. And I told him 3 or 4 times the whole entire process from start to finish. And it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I told him the whole thing 3 or 4 times. This is everything that I did. And he told me, something's not right. And I didn't know what to say to that. And because I was like, but what do you mean it's not right? And he was like, if you sprayed, there would be no ants on this table. So it was just going around in circles. And he started sighing at me. He started saying that I was ridiculous. He started saying that he went out and he bought that stuff and that he shouldn't have even done it and I shouldn't have even asked him. And I started getting upset because this is the kind of stuff that happens all the time. I don't know what else to say to someone when I've told them the truth 3 or 4 times, the whole story from start to finish, and they're upset with me and telling me that there's no physical way in the world that I'm telling him the truth, and that it's not possible, and that there's something wrong with me because there would not be the occasional ant. He said it's impossible for these ants to climb back on the table if you already killed them. Okay, listen, I thought I was going insane. I did not know what to do. And I was angry. I was angry because I tried really hard. So it made me really angry. It made me kind of sad. It made me frustrated that I had to explain to him how hard I tried. It made me sad that he didn't care and that he was saying that I was lying to him. It made me frustrated that this is how we were going to start our day. After I tried so hard, you know, I did the best that I could. I did the very best that I could. And it made me feel like I was insane when he told me that there's no way. And he was laughing at me. He thought it was funny. I said, there's no way that what you're telling me is even possible. Because, listen, it had to be possible. Because there were still a few stray ants after I did everything that I did to try to get rid of him for 2 hours. So to tell someone it's not physically possible, when indeed here we are with this happening, it makes you just start to have all this, you have not start. I mean, this is well into it. You have all this self-doubt. You're like, what more could I have done? I tried so hard. You know, you try to, when you're in an abusive relationship, you get so used to this. Perfection is unattainable by a human being. But your best will never be good enough. And then they'll tell you that you didn't even do what you did. So he gets up and we start arguing. And I'm like, listen, so-and-so, I told you the truth. What more do you want me to say? And he's like, you're ridiculous. And I was like, then the name calling started. Okay, so then I'm starting to be like, how is this happening? How, like my mind, like, and I'm looking at him and I'm holding my head and I'm like, what's going on right now? And he was like, what's going on is you. And I was like, what do you mean me? And he was sighing at me and he was like getting a little bit loud, and I broke, because that's what you do every time something like this happens and you've already dealt with it for so long and you don't know what else to tell someone. There's absolutely no empathy. You've tried your very best. You break, you just have a little break. And I said, what the F is your problem? And he was at the front door with his bag leaving at that point to go to work. And he said, you're my effing problem. And then he slammed the door. And I was standing there and I was like, nope. So I opened the door, slammed it against the wall. I ran outside. It's summertime. I'm bare feet, got little booty shorts on and like a tank top or something like that. I'm chasing down the sidewalk into the driveway, and I'm like, are you effing kidding me? I'm your effing problem? And I'm like, if I'm your effing problem, then you don't need an effing wife. And I'm just screaming at him. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. Okay, I'm screaming. I couldn't take what just happened. I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't deal with it anymore because I'm nobody's problem. And I told him that. I told him that. I told him in the driveway, screaming at him, that I will not listen to him because, this whole telling me that I'm his problem, he's been telling me for far too long that I'm his problem. And it's so degrading to hear that you're someone's biggest problem in life. And to hear it often, you start thinking, like you start beating yourself up. You start having no confidence, no self-esteem, like no self-love, like no self-respect. If you are the kind of person that really loves somebody, okay, and you're internalizing the things that they're calling you, it's gonna hurt your feelings when they degrade you and tell you that you're the biggest problem that they have in life, and if their lives would be so much better if you weren't such a problem. So I told him in the driveway, you don't want a wife, then you don't have a wife. Like, don't even come home. I'm not your problem. I said, you are your own problem. I am my own problem, but I'm not your effing problem. And I was just screaming at him, and he rolled the windows up and he drove away. So I called his dad. I texted his dad. I don't know if I waited a couple hours. His dad's a truck driver. I didn't know what had just happened. I couldn't comprehend it. I did not know what had happened. Okay, so I tried to tell my ex when he was in the kitchen, listen, I'm not trying to disturb your morning. I care about you. Don't set your hat on the table. I didn't want him to get an ant or ants in his hat and then to put it back on his head and find them on his body later. I cared about him. So when he went to set his hat down, I said, oh, don't set your hat there. That's what set it all off. I cared about him. I did not want him to get ants in his hat and then put his hat on his head because I cared about him. Now, if I would have been a bitch, or if I just really wanted to avoid the conflict altogether, what I could have done is just looked at him and watched him put his hat on the table and not said anything. But that's not what you do when you care about somebody. You tell them so that they know. And so it messed with my mind that day and every day that things like this would happen, where if I try my very best, and if I love him, I'm just trying to look out for him. And I went overboard with my best with that ant situation. Like, and he even told me, like, when we were sitting at the table and arguing, he was like, if you spent 2 effing hours taking care of the ants, then how the heck, I'm trying not to cuss, are there still ants? It's not possible. You didn't do it. So I couldn't make sense of this. Like, I love him. I'm looking out after him. I did my very best. I don't know what just happened. I don't know how he was laughing at me. I don't know why he's sighing at me, laughing at me, why he looked at me and said, "You're my effing problem," and then slammed the door. I don't know how doing something for somebody and looking out for their best interest I didn't know how it turned into me being his biggest problem in life. So I was like, I have to ask somebody. I'm going to ask his dad, because I always went to his dad. Whenever something like this happened, I always went to his dad. I went to his dad starting like 5 years ago to try to make sense of these kinds of things. I always went to his dad because I never knew what to do. There's nothing I could have done. His dad didn't have answers for me. No one has answers for that. There is no answer. So I called his dad. He's like, I don't know what to tell you, Nicole. He's like, that doesn't make sense. I said, it doesn't make sense. You're right. It doesn't make sense. And it never will make sense. You know, it never will make sense. So what inspired me to make this video today? What did I listen to? What like kind of triggered it in my mind where I'm like, oh, okay, this is the kind of content that I want to put out today. This is the kind of video I want to make today. I'm going back to school for neuropsychology, and like, I was talking to my therapist. I love my therapist, man. I was talking to my therapist the other day, like, and his goal are my goals, right? So how do you go on to be the best version of you? He's a therapist life coach. What do you need to let go of? What steps do you need to take, you know, to be the very best version of yourself? What are your goals? Like, it's like a vision board, but like it's a person that can, like, you know, sound off to you and hold you accountable. It's awesome. If you don't have a life coach, really look into it if you're not where you want to be in life. So I was talking to him the other day, and, you know, it was really great. Sometimes I see him for 2 hours because it's really helpful. You have to live with intent, and you have to live purposely. And when you start to make decisions with clear intent in your life, like, you start to sit down and you start to look at, okay, where am I? Where do I want to be? Where do I see myself in 5 years? Okay, how do I get there? You know, you can start like, okay, you have where you're at now, and you have where you want to be, right? I don't even know if you guys can see that from there. You have where you're at now, where you want to be. Now, not every route is going to work. Like, you might try to go this route, that might not work. You might try to, but there's so many ways to get to where you want to be, right? Like, there's a million different ways. This one might not work because you don't have enough money. This one might be a little bit more time consuming. This one might be impossible because of where you live. This one might be impossible because of your GPA or whatever. So what a life coach really does is they help you get to where you want to be. Look, where are you now? Where do you want to be? So I was talking to him about, you know, that, because that's pretty much what you do in every single session. And where you want to be, how you get there, is you let go of the things that are holding you back. So one thing that I was talking to him about the other day was more things that I need to let go of. And, you know, I recorded all this evidence, and I'm going to read to you guys probably another short little thing right here. But I recorded, you know, all of this evidence, right? And I kept all of these text messages for the past like 2 years, because I was trying to make sense of like, what is my husband doing to me? Am I crazy? Am I not crazy? Am I going insane? Is he right? Like, why is he the only person that's telling me, you know, I never said that, I never did that, you said that, you did that, you know, blah, blah. I didn't know, and I was calling his dad for 5 years. You know, what is going on? Why is he doing this to me? What's happening? What do I, like, what do I do? What do I do? How do I make it stop? You know, why is he this way? Is there some kind of diagnosis that he needs? Is there a medication? Like, what can fix this? Because no amount of, you know, I couldn't fix him. So I decided, and I've been coming to the decision, that I'm not going to do anything with the evidence, because what happened, you know. My mind was eroded to the point where, you know, I was no longer able to really discern, is his reality, what's real, is what he's telling me real, or is what I'm witnessing actually real, you know? So I recorded all of that, all of the lies that he told everybody, all the lies he was telling me, all the different versions. And, you know, I sat here after I lost a lot of people, and I was like, well, if they only knew the truth, then the truth, because the truth will set you free. And so I decided, with the help of my therapist and with healing, that it just doesn't even matter anymore. Like, everybody that was in my life for years and years and years knew that he was lying to me, and knew that he was manipulating me, and knew everything that he was doing to me. The point in which they stopped believing me was the point in which I said he is deliberately trying to drive me insane. But that's okay, you know? So what triggered me to make this video, like, what, it's not a trigger really, it's like more of an inspiration. I was listening to one of the recordings last night. So the very last time that he trapped me in a room, and arguing with these people won't do anything. The very last time that he trapped me in a room, I threw something at him to let me leave, because I kept telling him, let me go, let me go, let me go. This is illegal. You can't do this to me. Let me go. No, I'm not going to listen to you. Put thoughts in my head. No, I don't care. Okay, fine. You're going to run away with the baby if I don't stay trapped in this room. Like, do what you need to do, but let me go. Let me go. I was trying to barge through him, right? And he was laughing at me. He thought it was funny. So what I did was I took a really heavy Yeti cup that I had personally made. It has my name and glitter all over it. I had full of ice water, and I was trying to leave. So he wouldn't let me go. I threw it at him. And I was like, maybe, because like the way that he was looking at me when he was like, I'm like, no, you can't leave, you can't. He was like, stop, you're not okay, you're not okay. And I was like, I'm not okay because you won't let me leave. I'm not okay. And I was crying, I was hyperventilating. I was like, let me leave. And I was like, he's not listening to me. He's not letting me leave. I'm panicking because it's scaring me. When you have so much, and that's why it's illegal. That's why it's illegal. And this is in front of the baby. She's sitting there eating, watching her iPad, right? So I'm crying, I'm hyperventilating, I'm screaming, let me go. Try to barge into him. I'm like, I'll call the police. And he's like, you hit me. And I was just trying to escape. It's illegal because it scares people. People. You cannot trap people in rooms, okay? It's scary to those of us that have gone through it, because any kind of that level of control asserted over you when you've already had your mind warped, like there's no perception of there's no perceived escape. So it's just the more control that's been asserted over you, with like isolation from family and friends, with telling you can't do this, you can't say this, you can't think this way, your thoughts aren't real, your memories aren't real, that never happened, it's inside of your head, oh, poor you. You know, you've been not okay for years. You know, all these things. And then they're trapping you in a room, and you're like, I have the right to leave this room as a human being, don't I? But then you're questioning to yourself, but do I? Do I have a right to walk around my house freely? Because he's looking at you, saying you're not okay. No, you need to listen to me, and you're barging through them, and now they're like, I'll call the police on you, you know? So I was listening to the recording of afterwards, because it was the third time that it had happened, and I was like, this can't happen anymore, because it makes me feel insane to not be allowed to walk around my house to whatever room I want whenever I want. I've never been bound, right? I've never been restricted. I've never been in jail. The most restricted I ever was boot camp. You know, you can't leave, you can't go anywhere. And sometimes when you start to get homesick in the very beginning, you're like, I don't want to be here right now. I just want to be home with my family, or I want to be with my friends. But other than, and you get used to it. Other than boot camp, I had never been confined in my life. So, you know, when you don't want to listen to someone, I've already beat that dead horse. Okay, so I recorded afterwards. It's a 30-minute conversation, and I kept telling him, because I was like, if he recognizes what he just did to me, and I can get him to not do it again, then everything will be okay. I was lying to myself. So I pushed the record button on my phone, and I confronted him about it. And I spent 30 minutes arguing with somebody who said, that never happened. It just happened. Okay, it just happened. And I had thrown my Yeti full of ice water at him, and he was really pissed. But so he told me it never happened. But even my Yeti is dented in to this day, because it did happen. I was listening to this last night, because I'm studying this shit now. I listened to someone, and I didn't listen to him, I argued with him for half an hour, back and forth, a man telling me, that never happened. I didn't do that. Your memories are not real. You're not okay. There's something wrong with you. No, I didn't trap you in that room. No, I didn't. No, I didn't, Nicole. And so I was spazzing out, and I was like, yes, you did. So-and-so, yes, you did. It just happened. It just happened. You think you're going crazy, right? At the very end of the video, he admits to me that he did it. When your day, people, remember, this topic is gaslighting and crazy making behavior. Those two examples that I'm giving you, those are just two examples of a daily routine. Okay, if you're waking up in the morning, arguing with somebody about how it's not, because they're telling you it's not physically, worldly possible for there to be an ant on the table. If you did what you said you're doing, and then you get called their problem in life. When you say, what's your effing problem? And they say, you're my effing problem, and then slam the door. He said, you're my problem. It's not peaceful. I was just looking out for his hat. I didn't want him to get ants all over his body. I even told his dad when I called him that morning, the next time I spray for ants and there's still ants on the table, I'm going to let that mother effer put his hat on the table, get ants in his hat, and then go to work and find ants all over his body later. Because I was just looking out for him. I did the very best that I could. Calling his dad didn't even do anything. What did it do? I shared a story about a toxic problem that cannot be solved. It can't be solved because, that it makes no sense. There's no logic to it. This is crazy making behavior. Disturbs your peace. The person comes home, acts like nothing happened. And then the trapping me in the room, spent 30 minutes arguing with someone about the situation that he said never even happened. It just didn't happen. People thought I was crazy for recording my whole life. People kept on coming at me like, you're evil. Why are you recording him? You're trying to destroy him. What I was trying to do was trying to see if I was okay. That's what I was trying to do. I was trying to make sure that I was okay. Because when someone tells you that a whole entire scenario that just happened didn't happen, and with that much conviction where they're like, no, it never happened. What are you talking about? And you stay in that conversation and you argue about something very real that just happened, you will damn near lose your mind. And isn't that the goal of crazy making behavior? So here's one more thing. When manipulative people change a reality, crazy making and gaslighting. Gaslighting and crazy making are one and the same. They are both terms to describe a person that wants you to feel like you're losing your mind. They do that by causing you to distrust your own decisions and make you think that you are wrong about almost everything. They know how to turn you from a happy, assured individual with your own thoughts, own ideas, and into a dependent, unsure, and fragile person that can't take any steps without checking in with them first. Emotional abuse is insidious in nature, but crazy making is the ultimate perception destroyer. If you can't trust your own perceptions, you don't even know what reality is. After some time with the crazy maker, you'll come to trust the very person that is causing you to distrust yourself. Let's see. Yeah, that's really all I need to read. The more you distrust yourself, the more you'll end up putting faith in someone toxic, and the more you'll end up looking for support from the very person that's manipulating you, wanting to get their friendship, their love, their connection, their compassion, sympathy, because you really want to believe that they are good deep down inside, and that they really do love you. The more dependencies that you have on with the emotionally abusive person, the more they'll be in control over you. So crazy making and gaslighting, all it really is it's a power move. There's no reason to sit there and argue with someone about reality, okay? There's no reason to tell someone that what they did to you is never, the whole scenario is just made up all in their head, unless what they did to you is so bad that they can't admit it, all right? And these two scenarios, that's like day in the life of Nicole, like for months and months and months. COVID, I think COVID hit us all really hard. But in the field of mental health, we all heard about the statistics out there. There were people getting admitted, and I was one of them, getting admitted to hospitals left and effing right. The amount of abuse in the family system just skyrocketed. There's no accountability when there's no one else around. When there's that much isolation, there's that much now time and opportunity to be spent into, getting what you want out of someone. And if you can't be held accountable to the things that you're doing and saying to someone, the best way, if it works on them, to escape that accountability is just to be like, hey, you're crazy, that never happened. So anyway, I hope that this helps somebody out there that's going through something like this. I talked to my therapist the other day. My best advice for all of you, if you're going through something like this, is to call and then check yourself into a women and children's shelter. My therapist informed me that at the time that was going on, I had every legal right to get up, leave with my child, and check myself into a shelter to preserve my sanity. So this is my goal, this is my passion, this is what I'm doing. Let's see, I gotta go because I'm running out of time, but I hope you guys all have a happy Monday. Happy holidays. I hope everyone enjoys the time that they have with their family. Peace, love, and light. Love you guys.